cat? Nope, it's a child! Rewrite of Cat Child? By Anime Hair Colors on AO3. Read by Lily6645. This fic includes mentions of animal abuse, child abuse, trauma, and mentions of graphic depictions of violence. That is your warning. Chapter 13. Brother Kirishima. Summary. What happens when Aizawa has another spare room and a student of his is in a not-so-great foster home? Things continued like normal, well, with Deku finally accepting his family and opening up, until merely a few weeks later, when unfortunately the Yamada Aizawa family's morals got in the way and caused them to try and make yet another domestic change. They sat Deku down for a long conversation on the couch.
Listen, we were thinking about adopting another kid,
Aizawa said.
Only if you're okay with it,
Aizawa said quickly. Deku shrugged. Okay.
We know that this is... Wait, what do you mean, okay?
Yamada said. I already share my space with another cat. Deku gestured to Aizawa's old cat, Mango, who Deku began to see as a grandmother figure once she got used to him. Another human should be fine.
Are you sure?
Aizawa said. He had been hesitant to agree to it at all, but seeing as Kirishima was in an obviously neglectful home, he'd agreed to it. Deku willing. Plus, they already had a kid, so his argument of we can't handle a child with our jobs was invalid. Yeah, I shared my old home with 3 other cats and 3 children, including a baby. I don't really have a problem sharing, so long as you still care about me. I'm fine with it.
All right, well, there is another thing we should mention. It's Kirishima,
Aizawa said, straight to the point as always. Deku froze.
I know you don't get along,
Yamada said quickly,
but when Nezu looked into his home life, he's in a foster home that just has too many kids. He probably isn't getting fed or any kind of privacy. So if you would allow him to share some of your space...
Yes! Deku interrupted quickly. Please, just bring him here, please! Aizawa blinked in surprise, and Yamada looked at a loss for words. Both of them had assumed they would have to convince him, but his quick acceptance was not what they expected at all.
Okay, Kit. We have done everything we can to leave you your privacy regarding your past, but since it seems to involve another of my students and another kid who will be staying here, I think we need to know what exactly is going on between you two,
Aizawa said. If you must know, the Kirishima family was my original owners. Ijiro was my human, the only one who knew that I had a quirk, though he'd assumed it was just intelligence at the time. He was like a brother to me, the only one who wanted me to stay after finding out I was different. Neither of his parents interrupted once he'd stopped speaking. Aizawa made a gesture for him to continue. I didn't even know if he remembers me, or if he blames me for what happened. So I never bothered telling him.
I see,
Aizawa said at length.
I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I hope you know that you're being an idiot.
Deku said. Yamada sighed.
We won't tell him if you don't want us to, but think about it, maybe?
Deku nodded after a moment. I'll think about it. Anyways, you're bringing Kirishima?
Yes, if you're okay with it,
Aizawa said at length. He didn't want to drop the subject, but also didn't want to lose the precious trust the boy had only recently given him, so he wouldn't tell the red-haired boy or force his kit to do so, even though he was being incredibly stupid. Just so long as he doesn't find out. Like, don't call me Deku when he's around, since he knows the name. That's all.
All right,
Aizawa said at length. Why is my kit being such an idiot? He thought as his husband exited, chattering to Izuku about how they were going to get along great and how knowing Kirishima would mean that they could decorate beforehand, etc. They did end up going shopping that night since Yamada was too excited to wait. Izuku used all his knowledge of Kirishima to his advantage, not just in getting him a Crimson Riot poster and a large bookshelf. Yamada was honestly a bit concerned with the level of knowledge Izuku apparently remembered. He really likes a soft bed. He doesn't like stuff like futons and sleeping bags, though he would never complain out loud.
Noted. I'm sure the mattress we have in the spare room will be fine. Just pick out some blankets,
Aizawa said. Go with the bright red comforter. Red is his favorite color, and he tends to run cold. I think it's a side effect of his quirk since it makes his skin like rock. Soon it was time for Aizawa to pick up Kirishima from his former foster home. They were only fostering him for now to see if the redhead could fit into their family, particularly concerning the way Deku could hardly be in the same room as Kirishima, since they apparently hadn't told Kirishima who was coming to get him, which is exactly why he felt the need to do this. His eyes practically burst out of his skull as he saw his homeroom teacher.
Mr. Aizawa!
Kirishima said like he couldn't believe his eyes.
Yep, get in the car, kid.
Kirishima did so, robotically, like he was on autopilot. He was still in shock.
Are you gonna be okay with this?
Aizawa asked.
I think so. I was just surprised. You're really gonna foster me? Yes, I will mention it may not be easy. We do have another kid after all,
Aizawa said.
Just one? I can handle that,
Kirishima said, which made sense. The foster home he'd been in wasn't run by bad people. On the contrary, it seemed the people were very caring, but no two people can properly care for 20 plus children, particularly in a very small home. It was illogical, in Aizawa's opinion. It is far more important to take care of the children you have than to take in every single child you see. That was why he hadn't thought children were a good idea in the first place. He didn't know if he could care for one and still do his job as a hero and teacher. Still, Izuku had worked out. They could foster another, since they easily had the room and finances.
It's your classmate, Izuku Midoriya. He is adopted and chose to keep his mother's name. I am aware the two of you don't get along.
Kirishima was silent, so Aizawa continued.
I also know that it's entirely my son's fault. I don't blame you, but at the same time, I'm sure I can find other arrangements if you don't think you can handle it.
No,
I think I'll be okay. He tends to avoid me most of the time, so I doubt he'll suddenly decide he wants to fight or something. It's just one other kid, so I'll be fine. Thanks, Mr. Aizawa. Just Aizawa when we aren't at school. Okay, Aizawa,
Kirishima said hesitantly.
Good, we're here,
Aizawa said as they pulled up to the house. Originally, it had 2 guest rooms, as Nomuri and Tensei liked to stay over a lot, and since these two, particularly when drunk, could not share a room if you wanted to fall asleep before 1 a.m., Aizawa had invested in separate guest rooms. Now that Nomuri was a teacher and therefore really nearby, and Tensei had too many sidekicks to ever have sleepovers anymore, the bedrooms had gone unused. Until now. Both bedrooms were remodeled for the 2 kids, at least Kirishima's should be by now. Sure enough, when Aizawa opened the door, his husband grinned back at him, sitting next to an equally excited Izuku.
Present, Mike?
Kirishima squeaked. Oh yeah, maybe Aizawa should have mentioned that.
Just Yamada at home, kiddo. Bet you're surprised. I got that grump to marry me, huh? Yeah,
Kirishima said, then flushed.
No offense, said, Aizawa.
Aizawa waved him off.
None taken, kiddo.
Then Kirishima saw Izuku.
Hi,
he said awkwardly. Hey, I'm glad you're here, Izuku said.
Wait, really?
Kirishima said, surprised. Yeah, there's nowhere else I'd rather you stay, actually, Izuku admitted.
Really? I thought you hated me,
Kirishima said, really confused. Aizawa really hoped the kid had come to his senses and decided to tell the redhead, but he didn't. I don't hate you. I am really tired and gonna go to bed, Izuku said, then ran off to his room and shut the door. Well, Aizawa mentally sighed. That could have gone better. An internal voice that sounded a lot like his husband pointed out that it could have gone worse. Aizawa told that voice to shut up, in his head, of course. Out loud, he just put a hand on Kirishima's shoulder.
Come on, kid. I'll show you your room.
That is the end of Chapter 13. On to the next chapter. Chapter 14, Tragic Backstory, TM. Summary, Kirishima spills his past about his cat, and Aizawa is slightly horrified. Also, edit, because apparently yelling at trauma victims is not plus ultra. When Kirishima saw his room, his jaw dropped. It was absolutely perfect. Like, take his dream bedroom and make it, like, fashionable? The room had an accent-neutral color scheme, the accent being red. In the far corner was a simple twin-sized bed with a simple headboard of dark-colored wood. On the bed there was white sheets, a simple but comfortable black pillow, and a bright red comforter. On the side where the bed met the wall long ways, there was a large Crimson Riot poster. On the other wall, next to the headboard, there was a window and black curtains. Next to that, in the other far corner, was a black desk and white chair with a red cushion. Close to the door, there was a large black bookshelf, already filled with a decent number of books, some of which Kirishima had never read, and others that were already his favorites. In front of the closet, there was a large red punching bag. How? He began. Were his teachers psychic or something? How had they known all of his interests?
Izuku picked most of it out, based on what he knew of your preferences. Yamada designed a lot of the room's look, since he is interested in interior design.
Aizawa explained.
How did Midoriya know I liked Crimson Riot?
Kirishima asked.
He has really good memory, is all I'll say.
Aizawa answered cryptically. That really didn't answer Kirishima's question. Like, either Midoriya was a stalker, or there was some part of his quirk Kirishima didn't know about. He was interrupted from his thoughts by a quiet meow. An old female cat was sniffing around the room. Kirishima stared at it.
This is Mango. She's a sweetheart, but very old. Be careful with her, all right?
Yeah. Kirishima choked back tears. Sorry, I hadn't had a cat since mine died, so... He trailed off, embarrassed as the tears fell down his face despite his best efforts.
Do you want to talk about it?
Aizawa asked at length.
If you don't mind.
Kirishima did want to talk. He missed Dekoru, but Aizawa didn't seem the type for sentimentality.
I wouldn't have offered otherwise,
Aizawa said. With that, Kirishima sat down, patting Mango.
You don't hate animals with, quirks or anything, right? No, kid, I don't,
Aizawa said, sitting next to him.
So, I had this cat, right? And, well, at first, everything was normal, but eventually I realized something was strange about him.
Dekoru was smart, Ujiro knew this. He watched in amazement as the cat took the catnip-filled toy and carefully opened it with his teeth. His siblings bit at the toy wildly, but not Dekoru. He carefully opened the packet containing the green treat. He ate the leaves and left the rest of the toy perfectly untouched. Bro, why? Kirishima laughed. He wasn't upset, mostly amused, and Dekoru knew that, based on the playful meow he gave.
Dude, I don't even know how you managed that. You don't have opposable thumbs.
His cat nuzzled him as he laughed. This was good for him. It had been a difficult day at school. His friends often made fun of him, and although he knew they were only joking, it still often hurt. His cat was basically his best friend at this point, which was kinda sad, but really just fine for him. Still, his cat was smart. He didn't realize his cat could understand every word he said until he was complaining about a hairball Dekoru had thrown up on the carpet. Since Dekoru was his cat, he had to clean it up. So he was on his hands and knees being watched by said cat. Dude, I get that this is like an involuntary thing, but like, I'd really appreciate it if you could do it not on the carpet, he said to the innocent-looking greenish-black puffball. Deku said back. Idro gave a small smile as the cat nuzzled him in what almost seemed like appreciation. However, Idro noticed after that day Deku never coughed up a hairball, never threw up, or had any kind of accident on the carpet. Ever. Idro even saw Deku nudging his brother, pre-hairball coughing, off the carpet so it would throw up its hairball on the wood floor. Idro looked on, then looked at Deku.
I appreciate you, bro,
Idro said. Deku blinked at him, tail held high. Idro had no idea what that meant, but since his cat could understand him, apparently, he figured he could make more of an effort. An hour of researching cat body language later, he felt like he had a pretty good idea of how it works. His cat was probably watching his sister's homeschool. His parents wanted her to be ahead in everything. Reading, writing, speaking. Oh. Is my cat trying to learn to read? Ichiro wondered. His cat walked in, a small word card in his jaws. The word card said, cat. Deku sat it down at his feet, and Idro started cracking up. He knew exactly what Deku was doing, and it was hilarious. Idro's mom often put the words were behind the word card, after his sister had read the word. For example, if the word said orange, after his sister read it, his mother would put it in front of an actual orange. Now, Deku had put himself behind a card that said cat.
Yep, you are a cat,
Idro said, trying to regain composure. Deku looked pleased with himself at that. As he should, Kirishima thought, if Deku was really that smart. He was interrupted from his thoughts as Deku ran back out of his room and came back with another card. This one said boy, and he put it in front of Idro, who nodded, stunned. Deku looked even more pleased with himself and nuzzled him. Holy crap, my cat can read!
So, obviously, he had some kind of intelligence quirk, but then I went to talk to my mom about it.
Mom! Kirishima said excitedly. What is it, honey? His mom asked, looking up from playing with his sister.
I think Deku has a quirk. He's like super smart,
Idro said. He was excited by the news, but confused as his mom's face fell. Well, I would hope not. It's not a quirk, honey. Some animals are just really smart. Besides, if it was a quirk, we'd have to get rid of him, she said.
But why?
Kirishima asked. What was wrong with his cat having a quirk? It had already been a huge improvement. He never threw up on the carpet or used the bathroom outside of the litter box. He was the best cat because he could understand him. It's wrong for animals to have powers. Unnatural. We would have to get rid of him and get him fixed so he can never breed. Honestly, I've been thinking of doing that anyways. See, his fur is greenish tint. That could be the sign of a quirk, just not a dangerous one. If you think he has intelligence on top of that, we might need to put him down, his mother said sadly.
No, you're probably right. I was just joking around. You know, it's a thing the kids at school like to do.
try and pass off animals as having quirks, Ichiro lied. Oh, okay then. Anything else, sweetie?
No, actually, yes. Can I dye my hair?
Ichiro had the beginnings of an idea forming in his brain. Sure. Where did this come from?
I don't know. I was thinking of trying it out,
Ichiro said sheepishly.
To look like Crimson Riot?
His mother asked.
Yep,
Kirishima said, then left, taking his allowance to the store to get hair dye. He got 2 boxes. When Mom asked why, he shrugged and said the black was just in case he changed his mind.
The truth is, I used the black hair dye to dye Dekuru's fur black, and told him to try to hide his intelligence. Then everyone else would think he's normal, like he was my best friend. I didn't want him to have to go.
Ichiro spoke in a small voice.
I get that. I'm guessing he wasn't able to hide it.
Aizawa asked.
No, he was fine. I think the father had a fire-related quirk or something because, well,
it had started out a normal enough night. His father was drunk, which was scary, since he was a mean drunk. He was ranting and raving about the principle of UA, since he was an animal with an intelligence quirk. His siblings were nodding along, but Ichiro felt very uncomfortable. Still, while his father had never hit him, he was afraid of the times he'd yelled. Suddenly, Dekuru's brother Meow started coughing, obviously coughing up a hairball, but this was different. Meow's mouth was glowing red. When the hairball came up, it was on fire and ignited the carpet of the floor. His mother cried out in fright, while his father yelled in rage. Ejiro's young sister obliviously watched, probably thinking the glowing fire was pretty. His older brother grabbed a cup of water from the table, smelled it to make sure it wasn't actually vodka, and dumped it on the flaming hairball. He and Kirishima stomped on the rest of the flames to put them out. When they were finished, Kirishima breathed a sigh of relief. He shouldn't have relaxed then, as he soon realized as his father pulled out the knife and cut off Meow's tiny head in one fell swoop. The female kitten, Sky, seemed to understand what had happened. She transformed into a panther and leapt at Ichiro's father, who held off her jaws with the knife as he ripped her throat out with his other hand. The entire family, including the other cats, watched in shocked horror when the mama cat, Midori, approached the corpse of her 2 eldest kittens. His father screamed at her, calling her a whore and an abomination, even though Midori had never shown a sign she had a quirk. He made quick work of stabbing her several times in the stomach. Ichiro was horrified, but somehow aware of the small kitten hiding behind his leg, shaking in fear. Then his father turned to Ichiro. "Move, boy," the father said, holding a knife to his throat. "Please, don't hurt me," Ichiro said, backing away from the drunk man, fear filling his expression, terrified, and accidentally leaving Dekuru exposed. "It's not you I'm gonna hurt," his father grinned with malice.
Wait, please don't!
Ichiro cried out as the older man lunged at Deku, who ran. Ichiro had broken his promise. He couldn't protect his best friend and surrogate younger brother after all.
I had hoped that Deku would escape him, but when my father got back saying he'd finished the job, I didn't want to believe it. So I started going on walks, hoping to find him. Then, about a month later, found cat bones, bleached by the sun and picked over by animals. Near them, I found this, Idro said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a broken collar with the name tag Dekaroo. I should have protected him, Ichiro finished bitterly. He was surprised when Aizawa pulled him into a hug. It wasn't your fault. I'm sure Deku wouldn't blame you. You were just a kid. I know. I keep the collar as a reminder, though, that I'm not letting anyone down again.
Aizawa simply nodded, releasing him from the hug.
So, what happened after that? Assuming you're comfortable telling me. No, it's fine. It's good to get it off my chest.
Ichiro took a breath.
After that, my father went to prison. I actually testified against him, though the report didn't mention that, because I'm a minor. The lawyers made an argument that since Deku had an intelligence quirk, it should be considered manslaughter rather than cruelty to animals. I talked about Deku's quirk, and my siblings backed me up in court, even though I'm pretty sure they never realized he had an intelligence quirk. They just wanted my father in jail for that, since it was extremely traumatic, you know?
Aizawa nodded, so he continued.
He got convicted and is still in prison. All his parental rights were relinquished to my mother, so he had no claim over us. But she got sick soon after that. So, yeah, now I'm here. I'm sorry that happened to you,
Aizawa said.
Yeah, well, I should get ready for bed,
Ichiro said. He was done with vulnerability for today. If he hadn't been, he might have mentioned how much he hated that Midoriya didn't like him, since he reminded him of his dead cat family. But he didn't, so Aizawa nodded and left. Aizawa entered his other son's room to find him knitting. He sat down on the bed next to him, the only other space that wasn't taken up by the billion stuffed animals his husband bought once the man learned his Kit enjoyed soft things.
Kit,
he said softly. Yeah, Izuku said, pausing in his knitting. The scarf he held was about halfway done. It was interesting to see his fascination with playing with yarn that had been the original reason for buying the soft balls. Waiting to unravel, turn into a genuine and productive hobby.
I was talking with Kirishima. He was telling me about you,
Aizawa said calmly. What did he say? The kid sounded nervous.
He misses you,
Aizawa said simply. He wasn't going to make the kid live through the memories again. By telling him the specific parts of the story Kirishima had revealed. Really? What did you say? Deku was obviously worried that Aizawa would reveal his secret. Aizawa would never admit that he had been tempted to do just that, or just tell the kid he was being an idiot. Considering what he'd been through, though, that could alienate his kit.
I only told him that I was sure his cat wouldn't blame him for what happened.
That's good. I don't blame him. I mean, I took his family away. Aizawa shook his head at that.
He doesn't blame you either, and you shouldn't be blamed any more than him.
Aizawa paused, not sure how to broach the subject with his kit.
I think you should tell him the truth. He's very sad about you being dead.
You're sure he doesn't hate me? At Aizawa's nod, he continued. Maybe after the USJ.
All right, Kit. You don't have to do anything you don't feel comfortable with. But I know he misses you, and only an idiot couldn't see that you miss him.
I'll think about it, Deku said. Aizawa lightly placed his hand on the kid's shoulder and nodded, giving the kid a small smile.
I'm proud of you either way.
Aizawa really wanted Deku to tell Kirishima the truth because having the other boy back in his life seemed like something that could help heal them both. Just a bit. That is the end of chapter 14 of Cat? Nope, it's a Child! Rewrite of Cat Child? By Anime Hair Colors on AO3. If you like this, please go support the original author. Links in the description below. Hope you have a great day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, kittens!